Good day. Happy Tuesday. It looks like another beautiful day. I couple different announcements to make, and I know you guys know we start this out at the top of the hour with our announcements. I only have about 3 seats left to the free CE class on March 20th. So if you are wanting to get that 2 hours of free CE, make sure you check out the Facebook Connect page and register for that. And roughly about three seats left on that. And then just another reminder, next Tuesday, we have our huddle with the Minnesota Home Guys in the morning, and then they're hosting an open house at one of their properties to show everybody the before and the after of what they do. And then I will be there as well, kind of guiding you guys through how I do open houses, just to see if you can kind of get some tips and tricks from that as well. But that's something to look forward to. So check that out on the NRG Facebook page as well. I know we've got some more people kind of trickling in here, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this started because we have such good, valuable content today. One of a really good agents that I know and that I have worked with in the past, and he's a fellow NRG agent, Hui Lee, is our guest speaker today. I know Hui just from real estate and also financial services. And he is also somebody that I follow on social media so heavily because he comes up with the best videos. And if I need a laugh, I'm going to go to Hui's page and take a look at it. So without further ado, I have Hui Lee, who is, again, a fellow NRG agent, and he's going to tell you about what he does now. So Hui, take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Joe, first of all, audio check, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You are good.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I really appreciate it. And then just so you know, let's see, I will require some participation today, so I may pick on some of you. So also this is I'll use this as an opportunity to meet some of the fellow NRG agent as well. So if I call on you, please try to participate if you can, just to make this a little bit more entertaining, aside from just me talking the entire time. Also, I just want to get some sort of make sure that you guys are understanding the stuff that I'm presenting. So without further ado, I'm going to start my presentation and share the screen here. Let's see. Can you all see my screen?
We can, yes.
Perfect. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing. Um, are you just seeing the presentation or are you seeing the presentation with the notes?
Just the presentation. It just says confronting your financial fears.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. So the premise of thank you so much for confirming. So the premise of today's class is just to teach everyone financial planning 101 and just to see money from a different perspective. One thing I'm really passionate about is teaching people about financial freedom, what that looks like, and helping people confront their financial fears. So just a little bit of background, a little background about me. My background is actually in engineering. I went to school for civil engineering. I was super good with numbers, and I was like, well, what can I do with it? And then, towards the end of my engineering career, I was like, well, I'm good with numbers in the sense of money. So I thought about going back to school, getting a finance degree, only to learn that finance was a little bit more in the corporate world. They don't really teach you about personal finance in college. So I took that upon myself, learned, educated myself on, finance, like personal finance, and become a little bit more financial literate. Um, so, in the meantime, I got my real estate license. I thought I wanted to be a full-time realtor, but every time I met with a buyer or seller, I always ended up talking myself out of business. What I mean by that is every time, someone's like, oh my God, I want to buy a house. Next thing you know, I'm sitting down talking to them about their finances. And most of the time, I'm like, to be honest, you're probably not in a good spot where you should be buying right now. You should be doing something else with your money first. before you start thinking about buying a house. And then whenever I did a seller's consultation, I would ask them, well, have you thought about becoming a landlord or all that fun stuff? Have you thought about, turning your house into an investment property? So instead of me talking to them about like, oh, I'm going to list your house, market it, you the most money. No, I was talking myself out of business. So I was like, well, maybe being a realtor is not really that good of a path to me. So I became a financial advisor. Um, it was with Northwestern Mutual for, a good 8 months. And then I realized it wasn't a really good fit for me because they wanted me to chase after high net worth client. My goal was just to work with people and teach people about financial literacy. So I was like, I don't want to chase after high net worth clients. Like, those people are probably well off financially. They just want to be smarter with their money. So long story short, what I do now is I am a financial consultant. Basically, I teach people about money, rather than most advisors are, no, give me your money, I'll invest it for you. No, that's not me. I don't want to manage your money. That is not up my valley. Aside from that, I also invest in real estate. I love real estate. I feel like I understand it inside out. And I actually have another class coming up. It'll be on creative financing, just to teach you about tips and tricks, that some of us real estate investors do that real estate agents may not know about. But anyway, enough about me. Moving on. So again, the premise of today's class is just teaching about generational wealth, financial literacy, and all that stuff. So I've taken a couple articles, and instead of summarizing everything down, I just took some of the key points. So if you look at five different articles, um, just skim over it. But basically, the best way to build generational wealth is just to talk about it with your kids. Um, how many of you are parents here? I would assume a lot of you are. So out of curiosity, like, have you ever had that money talk with your kids, or did your parents even have that money talk with you? Um, I don't know about you, but the money talk that I got from my mom was just to work hard, make a lot of money, and save money. Aside from that, she really never taught me anything else. Oh, by the way, Amy, this is not a CE class, so sorry about that. And if you feel the need to leave early, please do so. But I really hope you do stick around. Um, so yeah, as you can see, involve kids in money conversation, education, talking about money, education, teaching about kids, children about finance, talking about money with your kids. So long story short, I just want to encourage people to, have that money talk and normalize it a little bit more. Um, so I just included this picture in here because I thought it was funny. Them, money doesn't bring happiness, me, pass the money over here. I like to be sad. So, the goal of today's topic is to help you establish a healthier relationship with money, look at money from a different perspective, develop your financial philosophy, become more financially literate. And I just want to include this last point down here. Stop taking advice from financial gurus. I mean, nowadays you see a lot of people online talking about, oh, that you should do this with your money. You should do that with your money. Like, honestly, everyone can hop online and call themselves a financial gurus. I don't want to consider myself that. So I just want to include this bullet point in here. Take what I tell you today with a grain of salt. I want you to do your own research slash due diligence before you incorporate or implement any of my advice into your financial plan. Um, so, I consider myself a financial consultant over financial advisor because financial advisors, some of the work they do is very niche. They look at your portfolio and they tell you, oh, you should invest in X, Y, and Z instead of, A, B, and C just to maximize your return. I look at it from a very comprehensive aspect, like, oh, which buckets are you investing your money in? We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit here. And then I think you'll get a better sense of what I'm talking about. So agenda, I want to talk a little bit about my money Bible, a quick summary of my favorite money book, Financial Planning 101. These are, the three big topics that people talk about when it comes to working with a financial advisor, and it kind of leads into Financial Planning 101. This topic here, it's mostly for people who wants to buy or sell in the future. So I'll briefly brush through this topic because a lot of you guys are real estate agents. You already done the home buying and selling process before, so I won't go too deep into that. Um, so I won't read everything off of this, but one of my favorite books on money is called The Psychology of Money. It's a timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness. And I just want to highlight 2 points here out of the six. So number three here, this was probably one of my favorite chapters. It's called Never Enough. Social comparison is the problem. It's the thief of joy. We all thrive to make six figures. And then, we get there and then we learn, okay, well, my neighbor next door makes $200,000. And then, their neighbor makes 500,000. And then they know someone that makes $1 million. At what point is it enough? Basically, the point of this chapter is sometimes you got to look back and be proud of what you've accomplished thus far, rather than comparing yourself to someone else who makes more money, because that's again, comparison is the thief of joy. Um, this is also a really fun chapter, confounding compounding. So something can grow very big from something very small. So basically, start investing early and just shut up and wait. And then the second half, again, feel free to skim through some of these, but I just want to highlight 2 points. 10, learn when to finance and when to leverage. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I'll elaborate a little bit more on that. Basically, what I mean by that is just because you can pay it off doesn't mean you should pay it off. There are instances where financing makes a lot more sense than you paying cash. And then 11, this is something we don't plan for enough, is you have to give yourself room for error. So, when we think of, coming up with an awesome financial plan, we just think, oh, we go to college and then we get a job, we pay off debt, we buy a house, start a family, retire, and you die happy. Unfortunately, that is not life. Sometimes life will throw you a curveball. So, you got to plan for the ugly and the worst before you can start planning for the best, which goes into my first point. When it comes to financial 101, before we do anything with any of our clients, instead of, oh, give me all your money, I'm going to invest it. No, we talk about risk management. So we talk about the ugly and the bad before we start talking about the good. The ugly and the bad being, what if you get hurt at work and you can't make money anymore? What if your car breaks down? What if your house burns down to the ground? So when it comes to planning, the best way to plan is with insurance. You protect your house with home insurance, you protect your car with car insurance. And then these are two things that people don't talk about enough. Disability insurance. Basically, disability insurance, what it is income insurance. Um, so just gonna ask you all this in the chat box. Do you all know what the difference is between a asset and a liability? Or does anyone want to come off mute and talk a little bit about what they know about the difference between asset and liability?
Basically, that an asset makes you money and a liability takes your money.
That is 100% correct. Thank you so much, Amy. So yes, with that being said, your biggest asset is actually you. You are your biggest asset because you are bringing in money. You are able to provide, a roof over your head, food on your table. I remember I talked with Jill a little bit a while ago, and most real estate agents will say that, oh, your house is your biggest asset. Unfortunately, from my perspective, you are your biggest asset. Your house is actually more of a liability. Your primary residence is actually more of a liability than it is an asset. Um, and then lastly, life insurance. This is, when we talk about protecting your house, your car, your income, it is a matter of, if my house burns down to the ground, if my car breaks down, if I, injure myself at work and cannot make an income. When it comes to life insurance, it's not an if I die, it is more of a when I die. Um, Unfortunately, this is something that people just do not talk about enough. Um, Little do you know, life insurance is such a great way to build generational wealth. Um, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit here. But when it comes to life insurance, know what you're buying and why you're buying it. Um, and you can and should get additional coverage outside of work. This is more applicable to people who has a W-2 job where life insurance is provided by their employer, but as a self-employed person, this is something you should probably look into if you haven't already done so. Long story short, there are two different types of life insurance, but we'll just focus a little bit more on term and permanent. Term, when it comes to term and permanent, we make the same analogy. I make a lot of real estate analogy, by the way, so hopefully will be easy for you all to understand. Term insurance is you are renting it. So typically when you're when you have term insurance, it's up till typically people will buy it until the age of 80, or they'll buy it for 10 years to 20 years. Basically, they're betting with the insurance company saying, hey, I'll give you, my X amount a month, which is your premium. And in return, if I die within that certain time frame, or if I die before 80, you pay out my beneficiary. That's basically what term insurance is. With permanent life insurance, it is something you get it until you die. So what I mean by that is, you can have permanent life insurance past the age of 80, because typically after the age of 80, your health goes down, your chances of passing away is a little bit higher. But with permanent life insurance, they don't care about that. They lock in your age and your health. Um, and then, yeah, that's just life insurance 101. And then I'll talk a little bit more about it later on, because I don't know how many people know this, but life insurance is also an investment vehicle. There are a lot of tips and tricks behind that. But anyway, going on to this. Again, I don't want today's class to be too number heavy, so I just want to help you all see money conceptually. So let's pretend this whole bar graph is your take-home income. Again, it's harder for us real estate agents because we have variable income, but just pretend you are W-2 employees and you have a set amount of income coming in each month. So you have your fixed monthly expenses, which is your rent, your mortgage, utilities, bills, whatever that might be, groceries, transportation, and then you have your discretionary income, which are expenses, which is dining out, your hobbies, vacation, whatever that might be. And then here's this thing that I coined called the now what money. So it's basically your leftover money at the end of each month, where a lot of people, they have that now what money at the end of each month, and they just sit there and they think, okay, well, should I pay off debt with this money, or should I invest this money? Um, when people think of investing, they think just making money grow, grow, grow. But at the end of the day, you invest because you want to pay your future self. You don't want to work forever. You want to put your money to work so that by the time you're in retirement, your money will work for you so that you don't have to work for your money anymore. So again, this is more applicable to W-2 employees, but basically what happens is if you were to get injured at work, or let's say, you hurt your leg and you can't perform the job, or you hurt your hands and now you can't drive, or whatever that might be. So typically your employer will cover 60% of your income, and which will leave you with this 40% gap. And with that gap, as you can see, you're not, you no longer have this now what money, and you will have to drastically reduce your discretionary spendings. You may have to cut back on eating out, vacation, and all that fun stuff. Long story short, what disability insurance is, it helps cover that 40%. And again, cost wise, I don't know. I'm not going to say numbers off the top of my head, because your disability insurance depends on your age, your health, and your occupation. So life insurance. Again, this is a very important thing, but unfortunately, people don't talk about this enough. Life insurance it's cheaper to buy 10 minutes early than 1 minute too late. What some advisors will say in the industry is that when you are or if you are on your deathbed, you can open a Roth IRA, but you cannot get additional life insurance. So that's why in the finance world, we preach life insurance. A little funny background story. When I first started working at Northwestern Mutual, they said that I would have to get licensed in health and life. And then when you start, you call up all your friends and family and get them on board and buy life insurance. Um, at first, I was like, wow, this sounds like a scam. So I did some digging and I was like, oh, it's Northwestern Mutual pyramid scheme. Turns out it's not, which was a good thing to know. But life insurance, it's one of those things where it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Um, and then within the real estate world, again, yeah, I don't know what you tell your clients, but I will hear people talking about like, oh, after you buy a house, you should put your house in a trust, you should do this and that. From personally, me, when people after people buy a house, I would tell them, look at your financial situation and maybe consider buying additional life insurance. What I mean by that is, when you buy a house, you put your house in a trust. The reason why a lot of people do that is A, you don't have to go through probate, and B, if you were to pass away, the house will just go to your beneficiary. Most of the time, it's your kids. Whereas with me, I recommend life insurance is if you were to pass away, your kids or your family will get this lump sum of money that they can pay off the house, and they can use the remaining money for lawyer fees. It financially, it makes more sense to get life insurance, pay out the house, use the rest of the money to go through probate than to put up your house in a trust. Because if you just put your house in the trust, you transfer it, there's still a mortgage on the house. And you probably don't want that financial burden on your family. Um, Life insurance analogy, again, this is more applicable if you are a W-2 employees, but basically, I don't know how many people or if anyone here has a W-2 job, but most of the time your employer will promise you, oh, you get um, life insurance that is 2 times your salary or whatever that might be. Unfortunately, it is not a one size fit all solution. Um, Personally, there's a rule of thumb where your insurance should be 10 times your salary, but I would disagree with that. I think, if you were to pass away tomorrow, at least your life insurance should be enough to cover your mortgage, pay off, mortgage, debt, whatever that might be, and to leave behind enough money for your spouse or your partner to survive without you. Um, that's just my philosophy when it comes to life insurance. And then the other thing too is if you quit or you get fired or you retire, your life insurance goes away. Again, more applicable for W-2 employees than 1099. Um, Again, going back to that last point earlier on my money philosophy, we don't we sometimes don't leave ourselves room for errors. What I mean for that, what I mean by that is when it comes to dual income households, I don't know, again, it's not always the case, but from what I've seen on my end, it is almost always the case. You have you and your spouse, you two have, your take home income, and this is where your expenses is at, this red line right here. Again, we don't plan for the worst because if one spouse's income were to go away, as you can see, your expenses is above your take home, which is not somewhere we would like to be. Which is why I encourage a lot of couples to, if you can live off of one income instead of both, that would be a more ideal scenario. Um, and again, going back to that picture earlier about building generational wealth, as you can see, life insurance is in here. Again, unfortunately, it is something that's not talked about enough when it comes to generational wealth. Is A, talk about money, B, get life insurance, and then of course all this other stuff you can do: invest in education, invest in stocks, real estate, whatever that might be. But these are just two of the recurring themes that has shown up throughout these 5 articles. Now, the next topic of financial planning is optimize. When we talk about optimize, we talk about how your money is working for you versus how your money is working against you. Oftentimes, when we look at debts, we are often overwhelmed by the amount of debts. I don't know about you, but this is just a typical scenario for someone in their 30s or 40s. you have student loans, you have credit card balance, you have a mortgage, you have auto loan, you have medical debt. And most of the time, people are just overwhelmed by all these numbers because they're like, well, I have all this money. What do I do? What do I pay off first? How do I prioritize my debts and investments? Basically, remember the concept of the now what money. Now, you have your little now what money and you figure out, okay, does it make more sense to pay off some of these debts or should I invest instead? Um, so on to, again, just, that now what money. So when it comes to thinking about your money and your investments and your debts, it makes a little bit more, not a little, it makes more sense to look at it from a percentage wise than a loan balance wise. Here's what I mean by that. Credit card balance. I don't know if you know this, but you don't pay off your credit card, the credit card company will charge you around 20% on your balance. Um, I know that it doesn't seem like much when you look at your statement, your interest is only a couple $100, but if your balance is like a couple thousand and your interest is a couple hundred, that's a lot of money. We don't see it that way because, we look at it from, oh, it's just a couple $100 in interest, but no, or a couple $100 in interest. But when you're thinking in percentage wise, it is really dang high. And then you got your auto loan, your mortgage, your student loans, and then REI is real estate investment. So let's say this is but this is just a theoretical scenario. Do you think this scale will tip to the left or to the right? Peter, I'll pick on you. If you want to come off mute for 2 quick seconds there.
It's going left.
It's going left. Yes. Unfortunately, that is not where we would, that's not where you want to be. You want your scale to tip to the right. What I mean by that is if your scale is tipping to the left, it means that you're paying more in interest than your money is working for you. So in this scenario, what will we want to do first? Pay off your credit card. So let's say you pay off your credit card. Now this is what your scale looks like. Now, do you think it's gonna tip to the right or to the left? Amy, I'm gonna pick on you again, if that's okay.
To the right. You got
Yes,
30 and 20.
Yep. So now you pay off your credit card, your scale is gonna tip to the right. So at this point, when you have your now what money, this is where the debate comes in. Do I pay off some of debts, or do I invest some more? Personally, I would recommend that you should invest more because if your scale is already tipping to the right, you pay off some of these loans, your scale will still tip to the right. It doesn't financially make sense to pay off some debts. Again, just because you can pay off some of these debts doesn't mean you should. So just a little background or just a little money life hack. So actually not a couple months, early last year, I got a medical bill for $2,000. At the time, I think I had maybe $12,000 in one of my checking accounts. At first, I was like, well, I can pay off this $2,000, but just because I can doesn't mean I should. So I called up the hospital that I went to, and I was like, hey, I'm struggling financially, not the case. Is there a way that I can finance this $2,000? They're like, oh, sure, we can put you on a payment plan. I was like, okay, what's the interest on that? 0%. I was like, put me on that payment plan. So now I currently have this balance of, this medical bill balance at 0%. So if you think about it on the scale, it's it's in the middle. It's not tipping my scale to the right. It's not tipping my scale to the left. Um, why would I finance something that I can pay off? Because I mean, imagine if you could buy $1 million house at 0% interest. How amazing would that be? Um, and then again, I pay the minimum and then I just invest the difference instead. So just a little money life hack 101. And then I don't know if you all remember my bullet point number 10 from my money Bible is number 10, learn when to finance and when to leverage. In this case, it was it was, financing that $2,000 medical bill just made more sense financially than to pay it off or to leverage something to pay it off. So optimize, if you can somehow decrease your fixed monthly expenses, your discretionary expenses, suddenly you can increase your now what money. And with your now what money, you can pay off your debt, you can invest, pay your future self, whatever that might be. Basically, if you cut back and start saving more and be a little bit more frugal, you're going to be in a much better place. You're going to be in a better place financially than someone who makes a crap ton of money and are bad with money. So at the end of the story, or at the end of the day, you will just have to figure out what's a good return for you. Some people think 8% is good return. Some people think double digits. Again, it's up to your money philosophy. Personally, I don't invest in anything unless I see some sort of double-digit returns for me. So again, everyone's different when it comes to that aspect. So which leads into our third point, grow and invest. Why do we invest? At the end of the day, we want to convert our active income to passive income. And we want to make sure that our money is staying ahead of inflation. That is basically what investing boils down to at the end of the day. Remember your now what money. Again, I'm not gonna tell you how you should invest your money or what stocks or bonds you should buy. But at the end of the day, just want to help you all conceptually understand how you're investing your money. So when it comes to your now what money, people often invest it into these three buckets. There's the taxable bucket, the tax deferred, and the tax free. So I'm going to break down and help you all understand what these buckets mean. So with the taxable, you have your CDs, your money market, saving account, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all that stuff. That's taxable. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but the reason why people invest in this taxable bucket is because it's very liquid. I remember taking doing a consultation with someone, and they told me that they had over $200,000 in their savings account. My first thought was, why do you have so much money in your savings account? The chances of you needing this much, Jenny, this meeting is not mandatory. I just want to help you learn about money and become financially literate. But anyway, so with taxable money, we recommend 6 months of emergency fund. So whatever your fixed expenses and discretionary expenses, take that, multiply it by 6. That's how much money you should keep in your taxable bucket. Aside from that, you should be putting your money into the tax deferred or tax free. Better yet, if you can put it in your tax free, it's a much better use of your money than your tax deferred. And then grow and invest. At the end of the day, you put your money in these buckets and hoping when you get to retirement, your goal is to take money out of these buckets and finance your lifestyle, your fixed expenses, your discretionary expenses. And if you have a little bit left over, you can reinvest it in this money or in these buckets. So long story short, actually retirement is a little bit more complicated than that. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but some people, when it comes to retirement, your retirement income down here, you have your Social Security, your pension, annuities, your qualify, your Roth, and again, life insurance. It is a investment vehicle that people don't talk about enough. So when it comes to retirement income, it's a lot more complicated than you think. But we got people out there like me that can help you figure out how to finance your retirement. It's better to plan for it now than it is, because I actually met with someone a couple of days ago and they were just like, well, I have so much money in my account and I'm just buying CDs and all this stuff. And I was like, why are you investing in CDs? And that's all they know. But as much as I want to go, oh my God, you should be doing much more, I'm proud of them for doing something than nothing. So anyway, when we look at money, we look at it from such surface level. So for example, when you retire, you want to retire with 1 million or 1.3 million. Uh, let's pick on Marie. Hi, Marie. Let's say you were to retire tomorrow. Would you want $1 million or would you want $1.3 million?
I would $1.3 million.
Yeah, no, again, I would too. But unfortunately, when it comes to money, we have to look at it from bird's eye view. Um, so what I mean by that is, let's say you need $100,000 per year in retirement. Which account will run out first? And again, when it comes to money, people don't talk about inflation enough. Inflation is the basically, long story short, everything's going to be expensive in the future because of inflation. But for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to assume any inflation, and I'm going to assume the tax deferred account is taxed at 30%. So, Marie, when you said that you want 1.3 million, with the tax deferred account, in order for you to get $100,000 per year for your retirement, you would need to withdraw $143,000 from this account just to before taxes, so you can pay yourself $100,000 a year in retirement. And if you do some quick math, this $1.3 million account will last you 9.1 years. Whereas with over here, this $1 million, this is actually tax-free. So if you draw $100,000 from this, you're not going to get taxed from it. So this account will actually last you 10 years. So long story short, what I'm trying to get at is, people tend to just chase after the bigger numbers. They don't look at the bigger picture. I mean, you all understand this in real estate. A lot of people focus too much on the purchase price that they don't focus on the terms or the seller's contribution or any of that stuff. Um, so basically, the premise of this slide is just to help you understand that there's more to it than just the numbers at hand. So with that being said,
I
would
have a
you?
question.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm 65. I'm not retiring yet, but
Mhm.
it would be kind of nice. But okay, I'm not selling a lot of real estate, so it's just nice to have some money coming in.
Mhm.
And like all of a sudden I'm having this, I have a Roth, I have a 401k, I have a SEP, and every year, and an HSA, and every year I've been contributing to my SEP. And I'm thinking, what's the difference now between contributing to my SEP or my Roth?
Yeah. Um,
And should I have been contributing to my Roth instead of my SEP? And why didn't anybody say that?
exactly. So personally, I would recommend the Roth because with the Roth, you can all the growth is tax free. Um, I don't know too much about a SEP account myself. Again, just I do have other people that can better answer that question, but personally, I would recommend, investing in the tax-free bucket whenever possible. So going back to this, when people invest in their 401k or whatever, they look at their bucket and they think, oh my God, I have so much money. I'm just gonna keep putting money in this bucket. Unfortunately, it is tax deferred. Uncle Sam will want a piece of it once you start taking money out of this bucket. Whereas with the tax-free, you're not paying federal taxes, you're not paying state taxes, you're not even paying taxes on capital gains. Um, so long story short, again, I feel like I would have to talk to you a little bit deeper to
Well, and
fully
now,
give you a recommendation.
yeah,
But
and now that I think about it, probably the reason I'm being advised to put it in my SEP is for the tax deduction now,
exactly. Yep.
rather than tax free later.
Yep, exactly. So again, some people put the money in the tax deferred just to bring themselves down to that lower tax bracket. So that's a strategy. But at the end of the day, you just have to ask yourself, do I want to bite the bullet now and pay taxes, or do I want to bite the bullet later and pay taxes later? So again, it's all up to you and what your financial or what your money philosophy is. For example, going back to
Yeah, I
this
think
scale
you're right,
earlier.
Huey. I think you're right about that. Like most people tend to have a lot of money in taxable and like inheritances. Anytime you come across some money, it's all taxable. So people don't put enough in non-taxable. And so if you can move
Exactly.
it like on this scale, I love this. I love this picture. It's like I have people tell me that they just got an inheritance and paid off a 3% mortgage. I'm just like inside, I'm dying a little bit, but
Yes.
yeah, like as much as you can put into tax deferred is perfect because we have so much that gets taxed,
Yep.
and they're only
Unfortunately.
going up. They're only
Yes,
going up.
it
34
is
trillion
only.
in debt. They're only going up.
Yes. Another really good book, I don't know how much you guys enjoy reading book on finances as much as I do. There's a really good book out there called The Power of Zero by David McKnight. Basically, the first two chapters, he talks about how taxes are gonna go up. People talk about, oh, I'm deferring taxes now, and it's like, well, why? Like, again, everyone has different money philosophy, but what I tell people is like, just bite the bullet and pay taxes now while it's low, because taxes are going to go up down the road. And Jeff, you mentioned, you hit it on the head. The taxes will only go up from here. David McKnight in his book, he also did a really, really good job at explaining like how our taxes is being spent. Um, and the government is doing a very terrible job at it, unfortunately. Um, and then again, just want to go back to this real quick. Everyone has different money philosophy. Personally, I understand debt. I have a healthy relationship with debt. Like Jeff said, when people talk about paying off like 3% mortgage, I'm just like, why are you doing that? They just want to be debt free. When you get to a point where you're debt free, okay, cool. Now what? You will still have expenses. You will still have some sort of payment, whether it's rent or whatever that might be, or taxes and insurance. At the end of the day, you want to be expense free, not debt free. Or at least that's my perspective, at least when it comes to money. Um, so let's see. So now that you understand tax or tax deferred, taxable, and all that stuff, would you say it's wise to invest in your Roth IRA that's giving you a 10% return, or your 401k that's giving you a 13% return? Let's pick on Jill this time. Jill.
Say that again for me. I'm sorry. My mind was like spinning because I'm
No,
stuff I'm thinking about right now.
no worries.
Say that again.
Yep. So my question was, now that we've gone through the scenario, like earlier, Marie wanted this $1.3 million account, but as you can see, once you factor in taxes and all that stuff, this account will only last 9.1 years. This will last you 10 years. So with that
Mm-hmm.
being said, would it be wise to invest in, put your now what money in a Roth IRA that's giving you a 10% return, or put it in a 401k or some sort of self-directed IRA that's giving you 13% return?
I guess I look at it from the perspective of the Roth. I know 401k, if I have to pull money out of that, that's going to cost me money.
100%. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. So you are very, very correct on that. I will have to admit, as I'm very critical of myself when I put some of these slides together. The one thing that's wrong with this is, we look at it from a percentage perspective, and even with these percentage, it is not the same unit. What I mean by that is this 10%, this is tax-free. This 13%, it is tax deferred. This 6%, it is actually amortized. So it's like saying, putting, oh, what, I don't know if you guys enjoy baking as much as I do, but it's like saying, oh, 3 cups is less than 6 tablespoons kind of thing. It's not the same unit. But at the end of the day, when you lay it out in percentage, at least it gives you a good rough idea of what should I pay off first and what should I pay off last, and should I invest or should I pay off stuff or pay off loans.
Hui, I have a question for you because I've had this come up quite a bit lately. I'm working with a lot of like first time home buyers,
Mhm.
and because the student loans, obviously the freeze is off of those now, and people are having to make payments, and I think they forgot about them. And and it's hard because I am trying to direct them in a way, and I'm going like, you need to talk to your financial planner. But what, tell me about student loans and like the debt, because it seems like majority of the first time home buyers that I'm working with have student loan debt. And I think this is going to be a new normal.
Yeah, no, it is. It is a new normal. I mean, at the end of the day, it's whatever they are comfortable with. Um, for example, if you have a 4 to 5% student loan, I would recommend take your time. Your interest is only well, it depends, of course, but typically it's 4, 5, maybe 6% return on or interest wise on the student loans. If you could, if your Roth IRA is maybe 10% or whatever that might be, invest your money instead of paying off debt. Again, some people are in love with Dave Ramsey because he's very much pay off all your debt. You need to be debt free. I don't necessarily agree with all his teaching methods. I think, there are debts that should be paid off and debts that should not be paid off. For example, if you have a 2 or 3% mortgage, why are you rushing to pay off, a loan where your house is it's still going to appreciate by 3%, 4%, whether your house is paid off or not. And Jill, to answer your question, it really depends on the situation and what they're comfortable with. For example, you have to look at it from two perspectives. A, the scale, and B, this this bar graph right here. For example, if they have student loans, of course, it's going to be, chances are it'll be part of their fixed expenses. When they have student loans, with their fixed expenses, their now what money suddenly goes down. Most people, they want to pay off debt. They want to be debt free so they can increase their now what money. But as we can see, you have to look at it from two different perspectives, this bar graph and the scale. See what makes sense, what makes the most sense for them financially. Does that answer your question, Joe?
It does. I really wish, and I'm so sad nowadays that like most of these kids are not getting taught like personal finance anymore. In school, and we used to have to do it, in middle school and high school, and then learning it. But I feel like we're not setting these kids up for success, which and then doesn't they're not able to buy a home then because they're not putting themselves in the correct position. um,
I
so
agree.
to me, it's really sad, but I also feel like we need to be promoting this now what money. I feel like that's a term that we need to be using because I mean we all want more now what money, right? Um,
hmm I guess my now what money is what some people refer to as FU money. I wouldn't necessarily call that FU money yet. FU money, it's really subjective. Some people think of FU money as something else. But anyway, long story short,
I feel
I
like
think
who
not
we
calling it now
like.
what makes more
Yeah,
sense.
FU money is like when you can go to Vegas and you can do that. I don't ever want to do
Exactly.
that because I work too hard.
Yep.
Yes. And Peter has a question, I know.
Yes. Hi, Peter.
Hey, so when I look at your model here, right, it's all about younger, middle-aged people and how to manage your finances so that you can invest in your future self. But as our population becomes older, the right side of the scale there starts to become the income. And do you ever look into HECM for purchase or reverse mortgage as a strategy for people that are 65 to 80, in terms of taking some of those expenses on their fixed income so that they can live out the rest of their life as a strategy?
Yes, that is a very good question. So this sounds crazy actually, but so personally I haven't looked enough into reverse mortgages. That's one thing I want to learn, educate myself on. But from what I've heard, reverse mortgages isn't a very good financial move. Um, so I actually met with an older client or older prospect recently, and she was just like, well, I'm close to paying off my mortgage. Probably has about 7 years left. And it's just, looking at it from this bar graph standpoint, her expenses are pretty dang high up to a point where she doesn't have much with leftover from now what or discretionary money. One thing I recommended, and it sounds really crazy because as you know, with amortization schedule, towards the end of it, the majority of the payment you're paying off the loan and very, very little of it is in interest. What I recommended to her, again, it might sound crazy, but I was like, it might make a little bit more sense for you to refinance. It sounds really crazy because she doesn't have very long left to pay it off, but when you refinance, suddenly, unfortunately, I can't make edits in here, but suddenly her fixed expenses goes way down. And yes, I know the idea of resetting the amortization schedule does not sound fun, but I told her about it. I was like, well, your mortgage payment will go, or your mortgage payment will go down by more than half. And B, when your kid inherits this property, if they decide to rent it out, their cash flow is going to be huge. Imagine having a mortgage that's less than $1,000 and you can rent it out for more than $2,000. That is amazing cash flow. Um, which kind of goes back to this scale right here. I don't know if any of you invest in real estate, but when it comes to real estate investing, people leverage the heck out of loans. What I mean by that is they will borrow, a 6% loan as long as their property is making, 15, 20%, whatever that might be, they're comfortable with it. Um, so Peter, does that sort of answer your question there with the different strategies?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not an expert on heck 'em for purchase either, but I've gone to some seminars where, it's presented in a way where somebody can use the equity they have in a house that maybe doesn't fit them and not have a mortgage for the rest of their life and a line of credit that they can utilize for the kind of that last chapter. So it's it's something I need to research more. I just was curious if you had looked into it at any depth.
Yeah, so yeah, I haven't looked too much into reverse mortgage, but um, I mean, yeah, getting a line of credit and pay off their, mortgage, it is an option as well, but transferring, you're just moving it from a mortgage loan to a HELOC loan. But, with a HELOC, you still have to pay it off and interest accrues and all that fun stuff. So, well, I guess my answer to that is it really depends on the situation.
Right.
Would have to look at the numbers a little bit closer to figure out what's the best. But for example, like the prospect I was telling you about, I showed her the example of it sounds crazy, but let's look at it from a refinance perspective and see what that would look like for you financially and all that stuff. So still thinking on it. And again, if she does it, yes, it sounds crazy because you're almost paying off a mortgage. Why would you want to restart this 30-year mortgage? But at the end of the year, or at the end of the day, if her kid somehow turned that house into a rental down the road, it is going to be a cash cow with the potential cash flow there. Um, the only downside is there's going to be a lot of equity stuck in the house, but if they don't want to, scale their real estate investing business, then they don't have to. They can just live off the cash flow. Um, we are actually running a little bit short on time here. We have about 5 minutes left, but I'll go through this real quick. Taxable. When we look at it, when we talk about CDs, money market, and all that stuff, it seems great, but when you look at the bigger picture, it's not all that great. For example, if you open a CD, let's say you get 5% return, the government will take 3 or 30% of it. You do the math, you're only profiting 3.5% return on your CD. You factor in inflation, let's say 2%, your money's only beating inflation by 1.5%. It's not all that great. But again, it's better to do something than to do nothing. Um, with a brokerage account, this is usually managed by a financial advisor or wealth managers. They take, 0.25 to 1.5 of your balance. So for example, down here, let's say you give your advisor 10,000 to invest, they make 5% return, they'll charge you 1% management fee. As you can see, 1%, 5%, it seems small, but down here, they're actually taking about 20% of your gains. At the end of the day, if you don't know how to invest, just leverage someone else's expertise and let them invest for you. And Marie, yes, I would love to borrow that book from you. Thank you. Let's see, tax deferred taxes will go up down the road. Don't contribute too much to your 401k. And then I put a funny picture over here of the IRS waiting to tax your 401k. Tax-free. There are two really great investment vehicles for tax-free investment. Roth IRA and Alert, life insurance retirement plan. I'll just get through this. Power of compound, better start small, or better start early with a small amount than to start later. What this shows is, let's say I start investing 30 years early, $100 per month. It's going to take me 30 years to reach this amount. Whereas if 20 years later, I'm like, well, maybe I should start investing now. I would need to invest $775 per month just to reach that same amount, compared to younger me that invested $100 per month 30 years ago. And then one last thing before I wrap this up and let you guys ask me some questions here. But when it comes to retirement, personally, I don't think retirement should be an age or a dollar amount. I think retirement should be a lifestyle. Like retirement should be, financial freedom, having the ability to wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I don't want to do real estate anymore. Maybe I'll go work at a coffee shop instead. To me, that's what retirement is. But again, everyone has a different outlook on retirement and life and all that stuff. And lastly, I don't know how much you guys interact with people in retirement, but retirement is boring. I am extremely worried for my mom because, I want her to retire early, but I feel like she doesn't have enough hobbies that she would just be bored out of her mind when it comes to retirement. So that's one thing I'm trying to work with her on these days is let's find new hobbies so that you won't be so bored when you retire. So again, this I I actually have a workshop coming up this Thursday, where I'll be presenting basically this and then talking a little bit more about real estate. So if you guys know anyone that is planning on buying or getting involved in real estate, buying or selling or whatever, and seeing what's the best method for them, invite them to my seminar. I love talking about this kind of stuff. So with that being said, I'll just shut up and see if anyone has any questions.
I
I
do
would
have
have
a buyer that I'll send. I'll see if he wants to go because I think he's just kind of spinning his wheels. He won't even talk to a lender. He just is saving money, saving money, saving money. And he doesn't even know what he'd qualify to buy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's one thing I should put in there is back then, again, I'm such a number and math nerd. I can mathematically prove to you that a smaller down payment will get you a better return when you sell your house than a bigger down payment. And then Dave Ramsey preaches, 15-year mortgage over a 30-year mortgage. Again, it really depends on your situation. Also later down or in that slide deck, well, later on, I'll prove some math of paying. Oh, sorry, losing my train of thought here. I ran scenarios, iterations, and all the numbers, and I can again mathematically prove that a 30-year mortgage may make a lot more sense than a 15-year mortgage. So yeah, if your buyer just has trouble, trying to figure out what's the best move for them, send them my way. See how I can help.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you. Any other questions?
Hui, my question for you is, where can everybody find you to get some more information? Where are you on social media the most?
Definitely. Very good question. Let's see here. Let me change the chat. So you can find me at financiallyfreewithwe@gmail.com. My number is in the email. Otherwise, if you're on Instagram, my Instagram handle is financially free with we. I post a lot of funny, silly stuff on money, real estate, and all that fun stuff. So yeah, thanks, Joe.
He absolutely does. Yes. No, I want to thank you for your time today. This was a lot of great information. The one thing that I will tell you is your visual aids are so much more helpful. Because when you see it is, everybody puts out their budgets and they're just looking at the numbers. But when you see the difference between like a graph and then the scale kind of tipping, it makes your mind think about it a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that helps. It's almost breaking it down, because I'm going to be honest, sometimes you feel like when you're talking to a financial planner that you're stupid. And it's because, like, yes, you're doing your job and you hire those people for a reason, but you've broke it down to be a very like normal.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that feedback. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's why I went into this. I'm like, I don't want to talk numbers. I don't want to throw numbers and scenarios because that's gonna get really overwhelming. Like for example, I was on Instagram scrolling through, and then someone's like, "Oh, this is how I would budget for someone making 300,000." I'm like, "Well, you don't know their financial philosophy. You don't know their budget. You don't know their plan. So for you to just lay out this budget and how they should invest, it's very generic. You're not understanding the bigger picture. And again, if you meet with the financial advisor or whoever, please don't feel stupid. Again, you know what you know, and they know what they know. And again, going back to that very first thing, or I don't know if you read my bullet point, but the very first thing I have on my money Bible is no one's crazy. We, we do crazy things with our money, but no one's really crazy because we all have different perspective on money and all that stuff. For example, the craziest thing I've ever done is I became a lender for a property out in Alaska, the state. So my family and we technically own a property out in Alaska, but we act as the bank on that. We are not the owner. We have a lien against the house and we are the bank on that. So, a lot of people will tell me I'm crazy, but I don't think so. The numbers make sense to me. I understand the math behind it. I understand the paperwork. So it's not all that crazy.
Love it. Love it. Well, Hui, thank you for your time today. Please reach out to him with any other questions. We'll put his contact in the NRG Connect as well. And Hui will be back in a couple weeks actually to talk to us about sub twos. Hui is a very big expert at that. And I'm excited to give you guys more knowledge on that. And then, yeah, check out if you have anybody, send to his class on Thursday. But just reach out with any questions. I think that's the biggest thing, is just asking questions to an expert. And he's here to help you guys. So
thank you so much for the feedback. Yeah, and if you have any questions or any feedback, feel free to add me and DM me on Facebook or send me an email. I would really appreciate feedback as well.
awesome. Well, all right. Thank you so much for your time, Hui. You guys go out there, do something amazing, be great, and enjoy the weather this week. We will chat with you guys next week.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much.